Thanks for joining today. Engineering Communities live show. Goal of this show is to connect smaller, disadvantaged communities in Colorado and other states on topics such as water, wastewater, city project planning, government funding, and everything in between. Today, we got a very exciting, interesting guest, David Schneider. He's the owner and founder of Wet Valley Water Consultants. David joined Round Mountain Water and Sanitation District in 2013 as the operator, and with his blue collar mentality has grown into their now district manager. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think you're still the operator in charge there.
Yes, on paper I still am because I have the highest certifications needed here. So,
Okay, sweet. Well, thanks for coming on. Can you give us a little background on what Round Mountain Water District is and what Water and Sanitation District is and what you guys do, what you do there?
sure, we service two little communities, West Cliff and Silver Cliff. They're sister towns up here in the middle of nowhere, so south central Colorado. We have about 700 taps that we have median household income of just under $40,000. Very much a retirement community, very little commercial going on. But it is a beautiful valley. If you've never been here, you do have to come and take a look at the Wet Mountain Valley here.
Okay, that's easy said.
So the two towns, uh, since the late 1800s, had their own little water systems. And then in 1975, they created a special district and deeded all their water works to Round Mountain Water and Sanitation. So our towns are our customers and not our bosses. And sometimes that's a blessing and sometimes that's a curse.
Yeah, it's so just to be clear, yeah, you guys are a separate entity. You guys are not a city, a town. I think that in Colorado, especially, it gets a little confusing.
It does.
Because mom and pop created this water and sanitation district with some paperwork back in the day, and they ran it like a bunch of bunch of buddies. We're just all getting water. Is that kind of right?
Pretty much so. It was for 30 some odd years, it was run on the kitchen table by husband and wife. And quite honestly, for what they had, they actually did a really good job. At least they kept good records. The concept of being proactive uh, wasn't really on the table. It was trying to keep stuff as cheap as possible to provide minimum water and sanitation, for the district.
So they running it as it's not quite getting run like it is a full scale business as it is today, and the rules and the games changing. The CDPHE is changing the rules and always updating them. So how do you what kind of issues and stuff are you running into as of recent? How have you solved them?
Uh, we are probably just like so many other rural districts out there or rural municipalities where water and sanitation is of minimal interest because we can't see it. If the water turns on when I turn on the spigot and the toilet flushes when I'm done, I really don't care what's going on. So there's always minimal um, import given to it. Well, as CDPHE continues to get more and more strict, that mentality simply doesn't work. So in my case, when I came on, I say that the ball was kicked down the road for 40 some odd years of situations. They knew the wastewater treatment plant had been overloaded since 1991. The well had never produced as much as it should have, but it was good enough at that time. The storage tanks, we knew weren't big enough, but it was good enough at that time. We knew the fire hydrants need to be replaced, but they were good enough at that. It's just that mentality. So now 40 years later, when I come on completely ignorant, there's no more can to kick and no more road to kick it down. And now we are faced with, huge financial challenges of upgrading the water system, upgrading the wastewater system, upgrading the water augmentation plan, and no money to do it. So what do you do? And you'll hear that chorus all over Colorado.
So yeah, that's what I was about to reiterate is I feel like I call and everyone says the same thing pretty much. Someone set it up. It's just the snowball's gotten so big that they're at a tipping point now. Um, so I I put the title for this how a 5-minute Google search and a phone call saved a disadvantaged community $8 million. So can you walk me through and kind of tell me that story?
Yeah, we are facing three significant upgrade issues. The most critical one being our wastewater treatment system was developed in 1975, typical three-cell lagoon treatment system, very adequate for what they needed to meet back then. But even in 1975 and 1991, it was overloaded at that time. So what Round Mountain requested from CDPHE is, hey, what should we do? CDPHE said, hey, tell you what, you don't have to meet any limits. All you need to do is report. I'm assuming with the assumption that that would give the district enough time to get their act together and upgrade the plant. Well, typical mentality is, well, if I don't have to worry about it, then I won't. So from 1991 to 2015, that's what all we had to do was report. Well, in 2015, we had a wastewater spill in one of our infiltrator beds blew out. So we went from the bottom of CDPHE's big pile to the top of CDPHE's big pile. Yes, and all of a sudden we have to do something, which of course we needed to do. So we went down the traditional path of interviewing engineers. We ended up with a large firm, figuring that they've done more, so they should know more.
Right.
So we went down that path. It was a project that if anything could go bad, it did happen. We initially tried to go to a stream discharge on Little Grape Creek that runs through the valley here. Our initial preliminary effluent limits were very easily reached. It just made sense to do this. All in the 40 years history before that, we've been putting our treated wastewater into infiltrator beds. Almost, we had just got our preliminary engineering design approved by CDPHE literally the day that we gave a green light to our engineers to start the actual engineering plans. We were informed by CDPHE that Grape Creek was federally listed as impaired because of the amount of eutrophication that was happening in the local reservoir here in DeWeese Reservoir. So they threw out our preliminary effluent limits and said we had to go and get other ones and pretty much strong-armed us, saying that you really don't want to go to a water source now. You need to go back to groundwater discharge here because you'll never meet the limits. So we scrapped all that, started all over, and started the process of designing for groundwater discharge. That was a 1.5 year process. In that middle of that, we were doing some significant soil analysis of where we've been putting our water because we've always had problems with the infiltrator beds not or failing early. So we did some deep soil core sampling, came back. It's all volcanic, super fine dust that's turned into a kind of a weak clay. So if it's dry, it's fine, but if it's wet, the fines settle and it binds and seals
Yeah.
like a tarp. So they booted us off there and say, hey, you can't use that. We looked up and down the valley, 2 miles each way, but it's all the same stuff. A lot of this valley was made by volcanic activity. So we were forced to go back to water discharge, stream discharge.
Wow.
So we're on to the third set of engineering plans. We worked and worked on that. All this time, the understanding was the price of the project is going to be around 6 million. We didn't hear anything different until CDPHE actually approved our third set of plans. And unfortunately, that's when our engineers chose to inform us that the project had over doubled the original cost, and it just put it far beyond. The original was 12 million, and now it's up to 14.1 million. Well, there's just simply no way.
Yeah.
It's so far out of reach, but no one would offer solutions. That was probably the most frustrating thing, was here we are with an approved huge mechanical treatment plant to try to get these limits. No way to afford to install it. And then when we looked deeper, there was no way we could afford to actually operate the thing because it needed 24/7 oversight. Well, shoot, I have 3 guys, boots on the ground out there, and that's all I can afford. I can't afford a night crew with 75,000 gallons a day. Uh, It was absurd,
Yeah.
but there
Wow.
didn't seem to be any solutions.
So it's so you didn't get that. Did the bill go up from 6 to 12 to 14 because of inflation, or was this just a oversight from a couple different things, or like what? How that's a pretty significant change.
And I really would have wished they would have told us about 3 years earlier, saying that, hey, tell you what, the initial design was going to be fairly simple, basically two pre-built little mechanical treatment systems come in the back of a semi, drop them in, and you're good to go. But as the effluent limits changed, then the design changed of trying to meet that.
So that
I
little
understand
change.
that.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I understand that, but the lack of communication just killed this project.
So were there a lot of how would I say? So the timeline of communication between CDPHE giving you new effluent limits, the engineer updating their cost estimate, all these things just kept dragging it out. And then by the time all they finish communicating everything and you guys get the information, you guys aren't engineers and you're just like,
Yeah.
oh, it's 12, this is 14.1 million now. And you're just like, whoa. Was it that was a year and a half, 2 years from 6 to 4 to 12 to 14 or
We started this in 2016 and we learned about this late end of 2020 is when
oh
we got
wow.
the final price.
Wow. Wow.
So, of course, we had been trying to be proactive. We thought we were in great shape. We got a $1 million loan from DOLA for this wastewater project. And no, what's this federal agency, not state agency? Um,
The EPA?
Not EPA, the funding agency.
USDA?
USDA gave us a very favorable 50/50 grant to loan ratio for the rest. So we thought we were in great shape, but of course now it comes in over double that. Both DOLA and USDA ran for the weeds because appropriately because they knew there's no way that we could ever pay that back with the median household income that we had.
I think something that a lot of people don't think about is these programs. Everyone thinks, okay, state government, state agencies, they do tens, hundreds of millions of dollars of projects. We're paying through it through taxes. But I think one of the things that gets missed in this conversation, exactly defining that these people, this is like 700 people. What's your service area that are paying for this through either the mill levy or their water fees?
So yes, we survive on our fees. We only get 7% of our income comes in from property taxes,
Which are low in
but
Colorado. Very,
which
very
are
low.
low. Yeah. So, but sure, on paper, I can tell what I would need to charge to get there, but the practical application, I would bankrupt the town. So Now what do you do?
And you would bankrupt the town because you're not living. These are Aspen people, correct? This you have a like what is the average income for your customer?
Well, like I said, median household income is just under $40,000. So pretty much teachers, you work for this for the county, road and bridge, and then 6 million, well, okay, a whole bunch of trinket shops and diners. That's pretty much your employment base here. Well, that's just simply not going to cut
Right.
it. Because so many people come in, we probably are 75% retirement community. Um, so they come in with fixed income, they don't use any water, they don't buy very minimal. So you have a very limited income. So
Yeah.
you can try to charge all you want, but if you're not going to get it, it's simply not sustainable.
So
So,
you got fronted with this massive bill, and you have no idea what to do. What have you come to? What are your solutions right now?
well, after I probably spent 4 months vainly trying to call I mean, I was trying anything to find funding for this plant. And after 4 months, I realized after 6 years and almost $700,000 of engineering expense, we're back at we're back at phase one. We are back right at the beginning, like we didn't do anything. So I literally, out of desperation, got on my computer and just typed in affordable alternative wastewater treatment systems. And the electric coagulation did come up. I kind of just bypassed it because it's but the unusual thing is a week after I did that search, I got a phone call from a gal that lives here in town, and she didn't know me from Adam, other than her mom is very supportive of our little district, and she said, "Hey, I used to work up at Red Rocks Community College, and we got to know some guys there that have this electrocoagulation treatment. They used it in a pilot project treating cooling tower wastewater. So he said, it's very interesting. I think you should give these guys a call." And I thought, well, that's interesting. And not only did I see it on the computer, this gal. So I looked for a few more days, didn't find anything. So I simply gave them a call and said, I'm really skeptical. Bear with me. But if you're willing to meet with me, and I'm going to bring my poop water to you, and I want to see what your wonderful Wazoo electrocoagulation treatment can do. And they didn't blink. They said, sure, let's meet up. We know the people at Red Rocks Community College. They'll allow us to use their lab. So I went up and did it, and I was blown away. How simple
Huh.
it was, and how incredibly effective it was. Yeah, as actually right now, they are up there doing one of the final treatments on treated water there to try to get to finish up our demonstration report for CDPHE. So they're up there right now. Good luck, guys.
So,
Uh,
real quick, you mentioned the demonstration report. So this is not used anywhere in Colorado. Where is it used? How does it come to Colorado?
So electrical coagulation actually has been around for a long time. I think it was invented probably at the turn of the century. Scott Powell has probably been on the forefront since the mid 80s of trying to refine this process to make it an actual, the problem is what do you use that doesn't burn up right away? So he's literally for decades been and refining this process. Most of his business is in the oil and mining industry, where they use this treatment method to basically clean up basically the mining water that's used to pull out the arsenic and all the nasty metals in that. And in the oil, they use it to treat frack water and other stuff. So it's designed to take care of the worst of the worst. And actually, one of the challenges with wastewater is it isn't dirty enough. So
It's
we have
not.
to change the parameters a little bit to make it more sensitive. to make it effective.
It's not
So
dirty
he
enough,
has,
meaning when it's treated, it I mean, just so people understand, when the water's coming out of the wastewater treatment plant, even if you're not meeting limits, it looks the same as the water in your bottle.
right, exactly.
Okay.
It's amazing. Like I said, you have to see it to believe it. So they have in the early 2000s, they did a push to try to get into the wastewater industry with this. They tried with CPHE and did some initial contact and kind of realized that Colorado is one of the more difficult states to get new technology approved. So they went to Oklahoma. One of the guys is a PE in Oklahoma, and they got one approved in a little town called Hydro, Oklahoma, over by Oklahoma City. They put it in about, it'll be 10 years ago now. So the good thing is that we have some actual real data to work with. Has this worked here? Has it been effective? What has been the issues?
Yeah.
So the positive thing about that is that CDPH has allowed us to essentially use that as kind of a pilot project so that they're not requiring us to put in a 1 or 2 year pilot project here, but allowing us to do a pretty thorough demonstration report of how we've taken our water, what we're doing, what kind of consistency are we getting, what kind of levels are we reaching consistently. So we are just about have that wrapped up. So we've been working on it a little over a year and are very excited and hoping for really good results from this testing that we're doing today.
That's awesome. So you're able to take, instead of sending it to creating your own little pilot study in your place or sending it to a lab in Canada and doing a 1 to 100 scale or something like that effect, you're able to go look at a real world application, similar customer base, similar wastewater characteristics, and just use their data kind of as a little cheat sheet almost to know
Right,
how it's going to work.
right. And we've been very grateful with CPHE to actually at least look at that. They were a little resistant, and I understand. But once we did the characteristics of their wastewater coming in, almost the same exact thing. It's a retirement community, almost the same exact size, very little commercial. So I think we had a good argument to say that this is a very accurate side by side. We might be a little higher and a little colder, but not by much. It wasn't making that much of an impact. So
Sweet. That's really, really neat. I will be watching and waiting to see. I think many people, I hear a lot of people talking about this project, and they're very interested to see which way it's going to go because I think there's a lot of disadvantaged, smaller rural towns that have these lagoon systems that are looking for alternatives, and they're in the same situation you are.
exactly. I've talked to at least a dozen. You know, this industry is like any other industry. The scuttle gets around, and I've talked to probably at least a dozen small communities that are facing the same exact reality where they've hired an engineering company to come in. They have this mentality, everything's got to be done with mechanical treatment plants, and they give them the final bill and they look at them like deer in the headlights. There's no way we can afford this, 15, $30 million plant. There's got to be another solution. The amazing thing about this concept is that we can use the existing infrastructure there. There's ways to optimize the lagoon concept and lagoon treatment. Uh, we basically grow the bugs, custom designer bugs for that treatment system on the front end, constantly drizzle them in. We skirt the ponds to create a more effective treatment. It also
Yeah.
extends your treatment train. A little bit of fine bubble diffusers to keep everything in suspension. We create oxygen for the ponds by using microbiology of microalgae instead of big blowers, saving 90% of the electrical cost for that. And So, and then we put a 30 by 30 building on the end of the plant that houses the electrocoagulation treatment, and you're done. You
Wow.
don't need UV. You don't, it's,
Yeah.
it's pretty amazing. And for all of us in the small disadvantaged community, money talks. So this projected on ours, it's projected to cost just under 4 million to do the full build out here. So
At what flow
that's
rate? Just I
at
don't.
75,000 to 80,000 gallons a day,
Okay.
which is it's much more realistic and sustainable. And we're meeting limits that, quite honestly, a lot of mechanical treatment plants would really struggle to get. So that's the
Which
exciting
limits
thing.
specifically? Like what I can't
We have
remember.
a phosphorus limit requirement of 0.025. And between the custom designing microbiology to address that and the effectiveness of the EC unit on the end, we've been able to achieve that. That's a hard one to get consistently. Total nitrogen of 9.1 is on the lower end. We've been able to sustainably get that even in colder weather. So,
I think that's a big one. That's a big one that I hear operators talk about is the cold water and the ability for these existing plants to get rid of nitrogen. I hear that a lot.
right. The nice thing about growing your own bugs is that you can keep track of that. The bugs don't totally quit in the winter, they just slow down. So you can just drizzle more in as if they need more people
Gotcha.
in there eating more bugs in there, we can do that. We have the ability to simply increase that flow on the front end to keep those the effectiveness up.
Okay. Um, I see on your background a beautiful picture of Colorado mountains and some solar panels, and it reminded me that I think you had a very interesting project dealing with solar panels.
Right. As when you first cold called me here a couple of weeks ago and asked me what the main issues were for small communities, it's time, money, and staffing. So this is our second project. So we've talked about the wastewater. When I came here, the meters had been put in 1990, 1991, mechanical, typical census, uh, great meters, but they have a lifespan, and we were way past that. We knew that we were losing lots of revenue through incorrect, inadequate, and the meters, those meters don't quit, they just get more inaccurate. They have blow by like an engine does. So we really wanted to upgrade that, and then our original well that was drilled in 1975 was failing. We had drilled another secondary well in 2007, which was a good producer, but I don't know how many people are familiar with water rights, but that well had very junior water rights, which means we had to pay back the state gallon per gallon for what we pulled out of that well. So if we pumped out 7 million gallons out of that well, we had to pay the state back in water 7 million gallons that we would have to release from our storage in Deweese. So that's expensive water on the water supply side. So we needed those two things to be done ASAP, but when you're talking 14 million or trying to afford a wastewater plant, how can I also do this much needed upgrade?
Right, because you don't
So
want to kill your debt to essentially if you're buying a
yeah,
house, you're like a homeowner trying to buy a house. You want your debt to income to be at a certain point, and if you take on this loan for the wastewater treatment plant or this loan for your water issue, then it kills the other one, and then you hand the keys over to CDPHE as you
right. And say,
explained.
sorry, we tried our best, but here you go.
Okay.
So I'm a bit stubborn and I try to really find solutions. Grew up on a dirt poor dairy farm, so I always had to make do with not much. So I was introduced at a special district association conference to a to an engineering company who works with the state energy office And just talking with them, they told me that was like 4 years ago, um, that they worked with the office and that the office was now offering an incentive program to replace meters. Well, that's right down our needs. So as I looked at this, they were offering a pretty significant incentive, putting a lot of the onus, the responsibility on the engineering company, of course, which I like even more. And there was a real potential that this could work. So I also knew I needed to replace a well. So I negotiated with them in the concept of under the energy performance contract, could I also put in a more efficient well, as this is significant savings both in water and in energy. So they they said yes, which was awesome. And of course, now we have the nasty part of trying to find matching money for all the grants and even for this energy performance contract, because that's the unknown. And, you know, all these grants and all this money floating out there, it's like this big carrot. But what you don't know is all these little hoops you have to jump to get to these grants. And the biggest challenge, of course, is they want some type of matching money. Well, my argument was then if I had matching money, I probably wouldn't be knocking at your door for grants. I'm broke and I need this stuff fixed. What's the solution? So the engineering company and myself put our heads together. Um, we thought, how can we do this? Because we quite honestly just blew whatever money we had in the $700,000 for the engineering on the wastewater plant that was still needing to be done.
Gosh.
So so we went to DOLA, Department of Local Affairs, and said, would you take the concept of we are pretty sure after our testing that we can capture revenue that's now being lost of 7.5 to 8% on the meters, and on our well, we know that each month it costs us about $5,200 to run a well electrically. We project to put in a solar array that will cover 80% of that cost. So we can give you some pretty hard numbers that this amount per month is what we will save or capture, and will you use that as matching money? And fortunately, they said, yes, we'll do that, because it was an actual contract with the Energy Performance Office, and they felt pretty confident that those were real facts and figures and real money that was going to be captured. So that then opened up the gateway for us financially. So we went and applied with 70 other people for only, man, there was only like $3.5 million available in that grant
Cool.
time frame.
Yeah.
So we did our due diligence and put together a real good uh, um, display for them, and we went before the board twice. And fortunately, we got 850,000 of that 3.5 million,
Yeah.
which we were very thankful and grateful for. And then now with that 850,000, now we had matching money to go pursue a loan for the remainder of this project with a state revolving loan fund. So we've kind of leveraged each other to get up to where we needed to be. The exciting thing for this, I wish every big project would go like this one, because as we're nearing the end of this project, we have confirmed already that we are gaining about 8% revenue capture on the meters. And on the well, this is our brand new solar array that will be running on a perfectly sunny day. It'll actually do 100%, but we put in 20% of unexpected, cloudy and snowy and that type of stuff. So right now, when I'm looking at the end of this project, it is coming the revenue capture from the well, or well, actually from the meters and the money savings, energy savings from the well. That money per month is almost identical to the amount of the loan payment per month. So we're coming almost really, really close to a net zero impact to our customers. I won't have to do a rate increase for these people to pay for
to
this because the
afford it.
project
That's
itself is paying for itself.
so a couple things. So you take two different programs that normally you never, no one's linking these together. The You don't have to sell anything to your customers, it sounds like, because it doesn't affect them. Their numbers don't change for
Correct.
them. And man, what what how would I explain this? Are we gonna see more of these kind of like really unique solutions needing to be put together to help groups like yourselves? And how do we find out about them? Like how can you put those two together?
Well, quite honestly, it will have to because these with CDPHE becoming more strict on both water and wastewater, these things just can't be ignored. So you're going to have to come up with some inventive solutions in order to protect your environment, to offer a quality product for your customers. You can't just kick the can down the road. So I've grown up the worst thing that DOLA could have said, no, we won't do that. And then we'd be back scratching something else. But they could say yes. And in my experience of working with the financing, state and federal financing, is a huge majority of them really want to help. They are just as
Yeah.
frustrated with the hoops as we are. And if you give them some kind of a even a half sane option to say, hey, would this work? Uh, they want to work with you and will work with you. Um, we're negotiating right now on the wastewater treatment plant um, of how we can, what creative solution can we do there? And we're also creatively working on a reservoir for our augmentation water. That's a $3 million project. How are we going to do $3 million when I got a $2.1 million water project and a $4 million wastewater project? How am I going to do another $3 million project
Right.
over on this?
So I think
So
is the big lesson just the CDPHE, they're here to help, and you might have to kind of poke them a couple times and just keep asking and trying, but they're not this. I think that's the thing. Everyone thinks it's this big agency. These are people. These are people too, and they
right.
want to help. And while they can't always help you right then and there, if you give them your intention, I think that they will keep you in mind when things arise.
Right, and they're really desiring, like I said, my experience, they really desire to want to help. Most of them have got into that with the intent of wanting to help, protect the environment, to give quality products. And yeah, I think the mistake that many, especially small districts, they look them as the enemy, as the big brother, you know, squishing them with their thumb. And you have to realize that CDPHE is pretty much just responding to federal EPA requirements and guidelines. Um, and they just
Right. It just comes
bump it
down to
down
them.
to us. Yep.
Right.
And
It's
then it's
just
us water purveyors that actually have to make the magic of trying to institute all these crazy
so
things.
so they actually want someone like yourself coming in and trying to find creative solutions because it's not something that quite honestly pays unless you're that proprietary person making it, which that person there's it's not this I mean, that guy has to put money in his own money to even make it. I just don't see it. It's not like Amazon where they've got this huge R&D facility going on. You're the R&D guy.
I am the chief cook and bottle washer
Okay.
here, but I
Uh,
do. That's one of my passions, is to try to find solutions that are effective and sustainable. When I came here in 2013, I told the district manager at the time, I said, my goal would be to take Round Mountain Water and Sanitation here in Little Podunk, West Cliff, Silver Cliff, and make it into a system where in the industry, it's like, hey, if you want to see how a small water district runs the water and wastewater system, you need to check what they're doing up there at Round Mountain, because they've really got a good system going up there. And of course, I was had chuckles and laughs, and
That's that's
but
awesome
we're
though. That's a
we're
great
doing
goal.
it.
I mean, we need champions. We need people out there, leaders like yourself, to help spread the word and do good work. And so, give them the cheat sheet. Why not? Like it, if you can
Yeah,
help 10 people, why not?
exactly. Yeah, it's doesn't need to be my cards held to the chest. I just want to know, to let people know that it can be done. They are not, the Gestapo coming down. They're very willing to work with you. Think out of the box. Give them, all I can say is no. Give them
Right.
options. Hey, will this work? Hey, will this work? If this doesn't work, how about if we try this plus this? Will that work for this? And then you can start leveraging uh,
Right.
those opportunities. The other recommendation that I have is, I intentionally, when I go to these, meetings and associations and all these conferences, I intentionally go and meet these people, because they're usually there, have a table. I'll take them to lunch just to get to know them person by person, because as in any other industry, it's who you know. And if you have established some kind of a basic relational reality with them, that really goes a long ways. You're just not another name demanding that they do something, because that's all
Yeah.
they hear all day. It's, is a bunch of angry, frustrated people. Uh, so they are people, remember that.
Yes.
And they want to help, and like when somebody actually reaches out to them.
Sweet. I have another question. Told me a couple weeks ago. You said there's significant problems with the current way that these engineers are solving problems for rural and wastewater challenges. I think we touched on that a little bit with your treatment plant. What are kind of some of the other issues you're seeing with how they operate?
Um, they're human too, just like the rest of us. And as humans, we get stuck in a rut. Uh, a part of this is kind of an unintended consequence from CDPHE, who a decade ago was really pushing on the wastewater side to get rid of lagoons as a treatment system. So everybody wanted to go to mechanical. They wanted to go to mechanical. The the engineers went down that road and found two or three systems that worked really good. And then it's just easy then to stamp those into the next, shoehorn those into whatever the next person coming in for a wastewater treatment plant is. There is great. I'm not hating on mechanical treatment plants at all. They are wonderful. They're effective, but if you can't afford them and you can't afford to run them, they're not a solution. I think the frustrating thing in my experience was the financial wasn't even considered. It was like, here's what you need, here's what you're going to do. You figure out how to finance it. It's like, if I can't finance it, it's not sustainable. That is not a solution. I hired you to
Right.
provide an effective, affordable solution that will be sustainable for decades to come. This is not it. Um, that has been very frustrating, and it's still alarming as I talk with these other small districts and hear the same exact song, second chorus of, we just got, our bill $30 million. What? How are you going to? There's no way. It's
Yeah.
not a solution. It's very frustrating, and I know, you know, they've created a business which creates a monster. I ran my own business for a dozen years. I know about overhead and that. But what happens when it gets too much, it's trying to make the buck to make the payments, and that over supersedes the
Right.
actual trying to produce a good quality solution for your client. Um,
I think
that's
one
very,
thing that I get hammered on when I was coming in school, this never made sense to me until I'm starting to hear these things. But when I come up in school, one of my teachers would say, a lot of people won't tell you this, but it is way cheaper to re-engineer something than to build something that doesn't work and is not cost effective. So just saying they might pay you a couple $100,000 to fix it, to save them 10 million, 20 million down the road. Like having that foresight up front is always cheaper.
right. So my challenge to the engineering, world out there is to look outside the box of how to find solutions. Because if you don't, you're going to become the Edsel in the industry. And if you can't provide it, that word gets around just like anything else. And we'll tell each other,
Right.
just like a used car. This is the place to buy a used car. Don't buy a used car from there. This is the place to get
Fords are
engineering.
out, Toyotas are back,
Right. So
Chevys are back, Ford's dead.
it's the theme. So, I appreciate the overhead, but the ultimate reality is you have to provide an affordable, effective solution. That's what you were hired for.
Right. No, it makes so much sense. I it's tough because um I think the two points really resonated with me is how are they going to get this information, because in a lot of states that they're registered in, there are continuing education programs, but they're so vague and they don't actually accomplish much. And I'm not hating, I like in Texas, I have my PE in Texas, every year I have to do 15 hours of PDHs and I do them. I don't walk away actually learning something that increased my level of knowledge. Like I learned something as required, but it didn't level me up. So my
Mhm.
point is it's not an effective tool to keep the engineers current. They're just checking the box, just like you're trying to check boxes and everyone else is. Who is going to spread these ideas? How does it get around better in such a small area?
Well, we're reaching out. CDPHE is very interested. I've done a couple of speaking. Uh, they've asked me to share at some local events. I talked in Salida about this. I talked at the Public Community College. Uh, we're slated to have a training session at the SDA conference, Special District Association conference in September, and also the Colorado Rural Water Association conference in April. And this year, the National Rural Water Association conference is in Denver. So we have been requested to share our crazy solutions
That's awesome. So those
there.
can, okay, sweet. Um, we're just now coming down on our time. Where do people find you so that they can pick your brain if you've got time, and what's the best spot?
Um, you can catch me probably at my real job here at Round Mountain. Email is usually the best for me. I'm very willing to talk because I enjoy providing solutions. My side business, my side hustle is getting a little bigger, and I'll have to make a decision, at some time which which route I have to go.
Yeah.
But my if they want to get a hold of me at D Schneider at rmwsd.com. I don't know if you have a link or something you can put up, but
Yeah, I
that's
can
the
put
best
the
way to
link
get a
in
hold
the
of
in
me.
the comments.
And willing to talk to anybody about water and sewer. It's become a passion of mine. I'm fairly new to this. I've only been in the industry about 11 years, but it's one of the most essential and rewarding industries to be in.
That's awesome. Awesome. So I think that wraps it up for the show today. Next week we are going to have a really interesting guest on. His name's Nathan Adams. He's a